call ourselves LEO, which stands for Life Ecology Organization, and the idea is that the outside system of life and the inside system in your brain have a big effect on how you function as a human being and how happy you are. And you actually have to start thinking in terms of the outside and the inside systems in order to really shape your brain to be more effective and to be more happy. So there's a whole team that's helped us get to this place, and you will also help. Like, we're constantly learning from everyone that we come into contact with, and so this is something that we all shape together for the betterment of everyone. Okay, so I want you to be a part of this as well. If you look at the headlines now, it's chaos out there. Depression levels are skyrocketing, addiction levels are skyrocketing, alcoholism, you name it. Illegal drug-related death. I mean, there's been 1.3 million deaths in all the wars combined in this country over the last 200 years. But we've actually had 1.5, and this is not an anti-gun speech, but we've had 1.5 million deaths from guns in just the past 50 years. 40,000 deaths per year. CDC said that the number of illegal drug-related deaths has crossed 100 deaths per day. We've got behavior-related deaths in general, obesity, alcohol, smoking, violence. For the first time, this is stunning what happened last year. Public health specialists were shocked by these results. But Caucasian men ages 30 to 50, their life expectancy dropped. It didn't happen in Canada. It didn't happen in Europe. It didn't happen to African Americans. It happened to Caucasian men in this country. Their life expectancy dropped. What is going on? Any thoughts on why this is happening? By the end of this, you will have a really complete model of understanding all the crazy stuff that's happening in our world, including some of the political chaos. By the way, I'm not political. I don't care if you're left or right. There was absolute political radicalism. This is what just happened. On the left, you had a socialist candidate that almost made it there, and on the right, you had a very atypical candidate that made it all the way to the presidency. So whether you're left or right, this is crazy what's happening, is anxiety. We have a lot of anxiety right now. Why that matters for you as leaders is that you are actually in the trenches of a war that you don't realize is happening, but you're about to realize where that war is and how you can win this battle, and why we need you as leaders to win this battle for the sake of our society, for the sake of our getting back to being great as a nation. So loss of identity. We thought we were the best. Now we kind of not sure we're the best anymore. The world is changing rapidly. Our share of total economic output has dropped. The Western world has gone from 75% to like 48%, right? So the rest of the world is charging, coming on fast. You've got robots, hungry nations, immigrants. Everyone's like, all the industries are getting radicalized, disrupted. But we have some suggestions for where you should put that neuroplasticity power, and that's what the rest of the talk is going to be. We're going to give you targeted aspects of the brain that you should consider shrinking and expanding, and then see what happens in your lives, okay? So we talked about the war that's going on. The war is inside the brain, and we're gonna help you understand why this war is happening. And this is where the battlefield is. It's in your brain. And this is where you need to shift your energy. Like, we as Americans are extremely innovative. And when we have a war to fight or a mission to rise to, we do it. But right now, we've kind of lost our bearings. We're sort of all over the place. We're panicking. We're anxious. We don't know where we fit in the world. The world's moving fast. Our educational system doesn't do a good enough job of creating lifelong learners. We're not able to be emotionally vulnerable enough to be adaptable, to be scared, to be anxious, to talk about that, work through it, and then go back to neuroplasticity. We struggle with that. And so this is where we need to fight the war. And you as leaders are critical to being able to learn this and then teach all the people that follow you, and then bring these ideas into your community as well in order to help our society become more stable. This battle between lower brain, and we'll define it, the battle between lower brain and higher brain literally determines everything in your life. It will determine how good your relationships are. It'll determine how effective you are in work. It'll determine how healthy you are. It'll determine how happy you are. Literally everything is determined by which part of your brain dominates, okay? So if you even take one thing away from this talk, and you're really disciplined about thinking about it 40 or 50 times a day, your brain will start to shape higher and higher. Neuroplasticity will cause your higher brain to become more dominant, and you'll notice the changes that will start to happen. Because as you become higher brain dominant, you become more stress resistant, and stress resilient. Things don't affect you the same. It's amazing when the change starts to happen. Things that used to really make me anxious or even piss me off just bounce off of me. I'm not perfect. There are still things that get me, but it's a lot less than it used to be because of changes that are happening. The opposite of that is being very stress prone and lower brain going brrr, and causing a lot of destruction in the brain and the body. Similarly, if the higher brain's activated, you have more focus and you have more functional IQ. The opposite of that is ADHD and ADD, which we have an explosion of now, right? It's because we are more lower brain dominant as a society. Love, peace, and joy are feelings that become more dominant as you become higher brain activated. The opposite of that is fear, anxiety, stress, and even addiction in order to self-medicate the pain that we're feeling. So that's what's happening is we as a society have become very lower brain dominant, and we need to reverse that. Optimism and energy is created by the higher brain. The opposite of that is depression and lethargy, creativity, emotional openness, etc. So we can actually now look at you from the outside with scans and measuring hormones and certain protein messengers, and we can tell how happy you are, how stress resistant you are, how effective you are as a human being, how good you are in relationships. Can you imagine that? We can actually now know where you are. And so if you're lower brain dominant, you're designed to get high, as we'll explain, but your happiness will jump all over the place. If you're higher brain dominant, your happiness just keeps going higher and higher and higher, and it's much more stable. So that's what's at stake here, happiness and effectiveness by virtue of brain functioning in the higher brain mode instead. We know where all these parts of the brain are now, and we know how they all interact with each other. This is all based on science, and this is very powerful in a negative way. This is in your handout. Oh, I should be saying that this is in your handout, this is in your handout, right? Okay. This is in your handout, and basically any problem in life or any good thing in life, I can explain by lower brain or higher brain dominance. That's it. So you can have fun studying this chart on your own, and you'll be like, wow. On a 1 to 10 scale, 1 being totally lower brain dominant, empty bucket, all the neurotransmitters and hormones and getting high, all those things are gone. I'm empty bucket, lower brain. Or am I full bucket, higher brain dominant, and I'm just high all the time? You can tell where you are and what functionality is going on based on where you are. So that's for future reference. See, hunter-gatherer brains that are just colliding with the modern world and creating all kinds of problems now, and we need to stabilize these brains in order to take advantage of all this wonderful chaos. So chaos can be really bad, or chaos can be awesome, because there's so much opportunity to be creative. We want to go in the awesome category. Do not beat yourself up for any struggle. I tell you right off the bat, I have issues with anxiety, anger. I'm constantly apologizing to nurses because I've got a near-death situation that's happening, and I a little bit overreact and start yelling at people. Some would say, you're justified in doing that. I would say, no, I want to do better than that. I want to stay calm. But the point is, I still struggle with some of these issues, though. I can get triggered. There's anxiety issues, anger issues, insecurity. Criticism is still hard for me. The robot's still there, so I have to just be aware of it and constantly be aware of what my triggers are, what my vulnerabilities are. And so I'm a joyful scientist, constantly optimizing. Like someone said earlier, where do I position myself in the world? And then how do I deal with my vulnerabilities? Like I said, you now know how powerful this machinery is. And even if you simply ask yourself the question 40 or 50 times a day, am I lower brain right now or am I higher brain right now? You will know the answer. And you'll shift yourself to higher brain. And you will notice changes happening over time and how much more stable you become and how much more powerful and how much more happy you become. So even if you just take that one tool away from this, it will start shifting your life.